Halfway through the application, there were a few questions wherein me and Arav thought that we're definitely not getting, and we read how difficult it is. Having an intuition is very important, and following it is even more important. You have far fewer people, and that's actually a flex, how much you can achieve. That also changed our perspective, because now when we go and speak to a company, we say we are able to build this entire software with a team of just 3 people.
Hey everyone, it's Daniel. I just wanted to introduce everyone to Krishang. He's an amazing entrepreneur who I met through YC in one of the more recent batches. There's just some entrepreneurs out there that I feel like get it, and they're smart and they're humble and they work hard and they view the world in a really, I'd call it hyper optimistic way. And Krishang, honestly, when I met you, you had a lot of the qualities of some of the best entrepreneurs I ever met. So I met a lot of billionaires and millionaires and like highly successful founders. I would say you had a lot of the traits for like just being a builder and getting stuff done and getting people really motivated to work with you and believe in you. But I wanted to have you on the podcast just so people could see like someone going through the trenches, like in the day to day. Like you really did what a lot of people dream about, which is you moved to Silicon Valley, you got into Y Combinator, you live in San Francisco, you're like building a tech startup, you're using a lot of like newer tools out there. On top of that, like you're in healthcare, which is another like whole set of problems. Tell me a little bit about you and like why even become an entrepreneur? Like why do that?
Firstly, thank you so much, Daniel, for having me here. It's been a pleasure to talk to you every single time. Thank you for being connected. And thank you, YC, for providing that platform so I could meet awesome entrepreneurs like Daniel. I think a brief reason why I got into this space was because growing up, everyone around me was an entrepreneur. My dad was one, my maternal grandfather was one, my grandfather was one. They just talked about these insane stories of them doing some really cool stuff in their business, and I thought that was very interesting. So for me, actually doing the job was something that was out of the box and unconventional rather than starting a business. Another thing was that I loved cars when I was a kid. So when I was in 8th or 9th grade, in one of the summers, I bought old cars and I sold it online. And I think that was sort of my first introduction to business, and I really enjoyed it. That was sort of my foray into the space of entrepreneurship.
Your family is like a lot of entrepreneurship there. Like a lot of people don't actually have that support system. Like, did it make it easier for you to take the leap? Like you wanted to do your own thing? Or was it, I don't want to be like my family. I want to do something else.
I think one of the great benefits of being from a family like that is that how open they are towards taking on risks and doing unconventional things. So, for example, for those of you who know how Indian parents are, I think if my family was not full of entrepreneurs, my parents would have never allowed me to discontinue school and focus on building Aegis out. And the other thing is, I think after I've been on this journey, I think I can just relate to my dad and my brother even more. I think we have so much more in common, and our day to day is so much more similar, which is talking to customers, focusing on your people, figuring out how can you make something more efficient, how can you do something that elevates the customer experience. Most of the goals that we optimize on a daily basis is very similar. Because of virtue of that, I think I'm just much more closer to all of that. It's been an incredible support system because I think it's so easy to relate with them.
Another question I have is like, you went through Y Combinator in a weird, I would say like during a transition, like, were you in one of the more remote batches or was it all in person? Like they've changed a lot.
Yeah, so I was in the spring 25 batch of IC, and it was all in person. And I'm very grateful for that because I think being in person allowed me to make better relations with the people around me and with my partners.
Okay, so YC was all in
Yes,
person.
all
the
in
whole
person.
thing. And where did you live before YC?
I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was studying at Carnegie Mellon over there, and YC was sort of my calling to move to Silicon Valley.
Okay, so that was what pushed
Yes.
you. So like you were there and like you were going to stay there. Were you going to get a PhD or what was your plan originally?
I was studying math and I was studying economics, and I was planning on going deeper into that path. Maybe going back to India, joining my brother in one of his ventures, or me and Arav, my current co-founder Danya, we were also hacking on some projects. So maybe working on one of that over the summer and see where it goes. I really didn't really wanted to do academia long term. I definitely wanted to either start something of my own, build something in that foray. And I was pretty unsure at that point.
What made you even apply to Y Combinator? Like, you're in Pittsburgh. It's not really a startup hub. As far as I know, it's not a lot of startups there. There's probably some, but it's not like Silicon Valley. Like, why apply a YC?
I think so. By February, me and Arav had this issue with his shoulder surgery, anesthesia for the shoulder surgery getting denied. And that's when we really started looking into this entire space of how does, or trying to understand how do our healthcare services get reimbursed by insurance companies. And we started going deeper into the space and we started realizing that insurance denials are an increasing trend and, healthcare providers are not suited enough to fight it out properly. And we were building a tool to help them do that. We were talking to a lot of people. And around that time, one of our very close friends, who's also an NYC, suggested that we should apply. And we were sort of filling up the application. And halfway through the application, there were a few questions wherein me and Aurav thought that, we're definitely not getting in. We read how difficult it is to get in, the acceptance rates and stuff like that. And we didn't think that we had a strong application. So we had that unfinished application and we were sort of focusing on just building out the product, talking to people. And then I think one of the nights, out of the blue, Jared emailed Aurav, who was the primary applicant, saying that I think this application looks promising. Just submit it. I think you have a good shot. And so me and Arav stayed up that night till like 2 or 3 a.m. I even had a midterm the next day. I did terribly on that. And we somehow finished the application and submitted it at 3 a.m.
Jared for the party?
Yeah, Jared.
YC email?
Yeah.
So you did half of the
Yeah,
application?
it was an unfinished application.
You're looking at it. Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
keep going.
that was interesting. So that was this unfinished application, and he reached out, and that made us finish the application and apply. And then we heard back for the interview in a month. We got in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the batch, and basically booked a one-way ticket to SF and depth. That's all.
So if Jared didn't email you, you might not have gotten in.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you might not
I
have.
don't know if he. I think we would have submitted our application for the summer 25 batch, but definitely we were not going to do the spring 25 batch.
Okay, was your batch a 3-month batch or a 2-month batch?
I think ours was a 2.5 month batch. It was not it definitely was shorter than the previous batches.
Okay, just for everyone listening, so YC like wanted to not lose founders like you, and they used to just do 3-month batches twice a year. But founders would just go to other accelerators or they would struggle. So YC like did almost like I'd call it like semester program where you get 2 months with the YC team, 2.5, and then they would rotate 4 times a year now. So you were in one of the 4-year batches.
Yes.
Okay. One question for you, like YC used to be 3 months. Now it's 2.5, give or take. Is it super stressful in that short period of time? Because like you started, I guess, from nothing, right? You went into YC with like the concept, mental models, like what you're going to work on. When did you start building for the company? Like before YC, when you got it?
We were building before, but we weren't really. We were also managing school on one side, and we were trying to build this out on the other hand. So we weren't really full time on it, but we were still building. Like we had a V1 version of the product that was ready. We had spoken to a lot of people, and we had some people who were interested in trying out the product.
Did you guys jump out of school? Like, did you finish school or no?
2 of my co-founders, one of them graduated early. 2 of us have not finished school.
Okay. In a weird way, is independent of you. There's another founder I know who left school midway through, got into YC. It does give you a psychological commitment to the startup because you've left something so important. This is my perception. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it is scary at certain times because I think almost it's been engineered into our heads that college degree is a bare minimum, especially for me coming from India. And I think every time when I don't feel like working on the company or I feel like taking time off or doing something else, I think it's always there at the back of my mind that your undergraduate degree to do this, so do it. And there's no way you cannot make it succeed. There's just like very little holding you back. It's just a very weird feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It just makes you scared certain times and makes you feel that you have to make something of it.
I think the best founders have less options. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out.
Yeah.
I'm sure he felt horrible. He probably never spoke about that publicly in some ways where he's like, I have to make this work because I left Harvard And that's happened over and over to like a lot of founders where they leave their school. There's there's probably no studies done on this, but I'm sure there's a psychological component for success in leaving school. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different because you see all your friends, they're back in school, they are working on some cool stuff, they're doing some cool research, they're doing this, they're doing that. A lot of the times they're just not doing anything that moves the needle, but it's still like a very interesting psychological feeling, I would say. It does make you a lot more committed to your startup.
I mean, for me, I had no in my first company, I had no backup plan like you. Like it was, I have to make this work. This is the thing. Like it pushes you really a lot. So I just wanted to backtrack a little bit and then see how Krishang, like when you mentioned like, eighth and ninth grade. So back then, were you in India
I was in Calcutta.
while growing up, like, 11th, 12th grade, when you were about like 17, 18? Did you know about YC? Did you know about, like going to SF and doing all of this? Like, were you active on Twitter? Like, where were you getting all your information from? So how was all of this happening? What did the young Prashant think?
Yeah, I think so. It's weird. When I was in the 11th and 12th grade, I knew what YC was. I had heard about it, but I didn't really knew the entire concept, and I didn't really knew the entire glamour of moving to Silicon Valley and starting a company. It did seem, there was some hype about it after the movie Social Network. But for me, honestly, at that time, I was really interested in steel. So my father built bridges, and I was really interested in understanding how steel is made. And I visited a lot of steel mills around Bengal because you know we knew a lot of people doing that stuff. And for me, I think coming to the US and pursuing an education here was not something I thought about very deeply until my senior year of high school. Even till my sophomore or junior year of high school, I was thinking about staying back in the city, working with my dad full time, and then opening up a steel mill. I was really interested in this concept of using hydrogen to produce steel. So my world was very, very different in high school, and the kind of stuff I was doing was very different. That was sort of what I wanted to do back then.
So, how was your exposure to technology? Because you were in steel and everything. Like when your family, you've been growing up with, was it a more traditional sense, or were you always exploring technology, SaaS, and AI? And how was that side of things?
I think for me, the first proper introduction to technology was this course at Carnegie Mellon. That's when I first got interested in technology. Towards the end of the course at Carnegie Mellon, you have to make a working project from scratch. And this was before GPT had rolled out. And I really enjoyed doing that. I really enjoyed creating this portfolio visualizer and optimizer dashboard, which essentially takes stocks, runs simulations on them, tries to predict what the expected value or what the stock price should be, tries to run some sort of sentiment analysis and stuff. So that was sort of my first exposure to technology. And going to Carnegie Mellon, where most of my friends were studying computer science, I just got drawn into the field.
And I'm guessing that exactly when OpenAI rolled out their GPT 3.5 in November 2022, and then it instantly started clicking, and then you might have connected the dots and so wanted to build something with LLMs, right? Was that something that was happening?
Yeah, I mean, when ChatGPT rolled up, I was shocked to see something like this exist. And I think it was just mind blowing when I first saw it. And I think summer of 2023 was when my very close friend at that time dropped out to do YC. He was building an AI personal assistant, and I saw him how he could make a personal assistant sort of with AI that could really talk to you and figure out. And it was such a unique thing to see a 21-year-old or a 19-year-old at that time build out. And I think I was really fascinated by how game changing this technology is, and I just wanted to do something with it.
I think this was just about the healthcare. I think you did mention that you did come across a really important pain point about healthcare. I think you mentioned like some of your friends encountered the problem themselves, and then you figured that this is the right time to build in this space, right? Because from the outside, it just looks like a nice textbook YC story, right? I mean, go from India, study in Carnegie, and then boom, you get an idea. You fly to SF, and then this was like the partner also calling you to apply. So I'm pretty sure there were some nuances that might have happened, right? So, what were the nuances where you might have felt, okay, this is a little trickier than I thought. It might look sparkly from the outside, but it definitely is a little more difficult. So, were there any instances where you found that out?
Yeah, I think so. What we do is we help hospitals and healthcare providers appeal denials. So essentially, what happens is that they get a lot of these denied claims, which they're not able to fight back, and they're not able to understand why they are happening in the first place. And we essentially help them understand the why and also fight it out on their behalf using AI agents. And one of the key things that has been happening over the past 3 years is that insurance companies have been using a lot of AI technologies to sort of adjudicate claims and leading to more and more denials. And the traditional infrastructure that hospitals have in place to fight back on these denials have started failing down. So what essentially started happening is that hospitals have started writing off a lot of these denials from the basically part of the contractual adjustments, and they're losing a lot of money to these insurance companies. So with our idea, we thought that the why now is so insane because you know AI just started rolling out. Companies have figured out a better way to use it, and healthcare providers are not being able to use it well because of obviously how long they are with the sales cycle processes and how long they are to implement technology. That we just thought it would be a great problem to solve. Now, going deeper into the specific problem itself, one of the key things that LLMs are great at is structuring a lot of unstructured information. And what happens is when you need to fight back on a specific patient's denial, um, there's a lot of unstructured medical information about that specific patient, insurance information, so on and so forth. And with these AI models, you can very easily condense them and form an argument. So you're essentially outperforming a human in that entire functionality. And that's why we were very excited about this idea and the why now, about why it is a correct time to build this product right now.
I mean, from perspective, it's a really powerful idea. Like AI agents, claim denials, it's a huge market. Like, it's apparent to me that the world is going to change. Like, as crazy as it sounds in my head, I view it as like AI agents are going to look at claims and figure out how to fix them. Is that the premise, like the big overall arching premise of the company, or is it different?
I don't know if a lot of people know about this. So there's this industry called the revenue cycle management industry, which is billions of dollars. It's a huge, insane industry. And all that industry is supposed to do is basically take charges from providers and figure out how to get that paid from insurance companies. And it's currently a super long, man made, intensive process. What the future we want to build is if a doctor that comes in deals with the different patients, there are these patient notes and summary charts and so on and so forth. And you have AI agents on both the provider side and the insurance side that figure out amongst themselves what is an appropriate amount that should be reimbursed to the hospitals. And I think this is going to be one of the first key frontiers where AI is going to unlock a lot of savings for hospitals and health systems, especially because you don't need so many humans in the loop trying to figure out, okay, should this claim be paid by United or not? What specific CPT code should be attached to this claim, so on and so forth. And it just wants to build that future for hospitals. It just wants to build the entire interface such that the moment the doctor sees a patient and the moment there's a surgery that's been done, our agents can automatically file for prior authorization requests. Our agents can automatically go and submit those claims to the insurance companies, and if there's a denial, automatically fight it back. So that's sort of the future we are building towards.
Where do you see things like in 5 years? Like, is it going to get all agentic, or is there going to be people involved still in that future?
I think that there will still be people involved to a certain extent. I just think that the number of people will go down drastically. So I think people will still be involved on a very higher level, but there won't be people involved in tasks such as assigning medical codes, writing appeal letters, um, going through the audit charts and figuring out whether a claim has been underpaid or not. So I think 80 to 90% of the humans involved would no longer be needed.
80 to, so it's a huge industry right now. It's like trillions.
But a lot of it is, no, I wouldn't say trillions, it's in the high billions, but a lot of it is outsourced to India, Bangladesh, and all these different countries.
Yes. So it's going to affect
Jobs overseas.
the medical billing industry a lot, correct? So you think the future is more this agentic way of doing things.
Correct.
Do you think that those people with like their jobs, right, like their livelihood, do you really think it's going to get that good? Like it's going to get that good where like people won't have to do it. You'll have all these agentic machines learning how to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, like the insurance companies don't want agentic fixes. Maybe they do. Maybe it'll save them time.
I think the issue with insurance companies is also that they also spend a lot of time and money trying to adjudicate these claims because also have to spend a lot of resources. So I do think that from both the sides, they will try to move towards a more agentic future in which they have agents from both the sides trying to figure out the correct rate of reimbursement that the hospital should get.
Okay, so it's good all around. So they want to save money. They don't want to hire a lot of people. They want to get the claims paid as fast as possible. And on the flip side, the practices and the clinical institutions also want that. Like, I guess, you're at ground zero in AI in Silicon Valley. What is the biggest trend happening right now? One in healthcare and the other outside of healthcare. Like I'll just throw one thing out there. Me and Harshit always talk about OpenClaw, which is this agentic thing that we use it a lot internally in our company. Like, what's the buzz? Because you live in San Francisco. You're seeing trends there that like are very quick. Like, what would you say are the trends in healthcare in San Francisco, and then the trends just in general, like AI?
Yeah, I think currently the trend in healthcare seems to be just use voice agents and apply it to any aspect of healthcare where there's a phone call or something involved. That seems to be the trend now. And I think that people have started not facing a lot of success in it because so I was talking to this hospital system and they were telling me that the issues that is happening by implementing voice agents to call up insurance companies is that as soon as the insurance company picks up the call and realizes it's an AI, they would cut the call. So it's getting that worse. And so I think voice agents is a very big sort of wave or trend I see in healthcare right now. Outside of healthcare, I see a lot of tech-enabled services businesses popping up. So, like, if you look at the last batch of YC, there are three legal, I think legal companies wherein they use a lot of AI and technology alongside with lawyers to provide services like contract reviews and so on and so forth. And I think that's a lot of companies are doing that. And I think that is something that YC has also spoken about a lot, right? Like, instead of making technology that helps legal firms save on costs, why not build the legal firm itself with technology at the center? And I think that's a very interesting trend I'm seeing around me.
Now that you're talking through like the psychological component of like AI, like when I call for support, like, and some of these, whatever it is, I'll call Apple or someone else, another company. I have to get on the phone and deal with an AI. And generally they're not that good yet. Like a lot of them just don't have the answers. It's going to get better and better, but insurance companies probably are not tolerating it at all. So it's a problem where you're going to have to combat it in some way. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like Harshith was trying out this one tool where, like, when we're on a podcast, it would actually give him a bunch of stuff about a person and questions to ask live. Maybe there's going to be a hybrid approach where those people in India are not going to be removed, but they're going to just have more information at a very fast rate for the phone calls instead of having to fumble more.
I think so there was this other company, and what they were essentially doing was that instead of having those voice agents talk to the specific insurance company, what they do is they navigate through the different menus or the options in the phone book. They wait for the agent to get on the phone and then they immediately transfer the phone to a human to talk to them. So it still does end up saving a lot of time, but it's a very interesting way of how technology is getting applied.
Okay, I mean, that's actually like self-driving Tesla. Like it drives itself, but you really need a person in there also a lot of the time. So there'll probably be a lot of times where you're going to need still people. So the world, it's not going to be fully agentic, is what you're saying right now.
I would like to believe that it won't be fully agentic, but as new and new models release, I'm starting to think more on the other side wherein be capable enough of doing all of these tasks.
So you're looking at it from the other lens, like how do we get to that point where you don't have a person at all?
Yes.
Question for you: do you guys look at OpenClaw?
I was very interested in OpenClaw and I didn't honestly get the time to explore it further. The last few weeks have been very busy with us, but I did get the opportunity to meet Peter Steinberger and the story behind him building it out was very, very interesting.
Oh, so you had the chance. YC had this one
Yeah,
talk with Peter there.
yeah.
So you went, you sat in a room with him right before he sold it to OpenAI, right? So like, what was the takeaway from that talk? What inspired you, or like, what'd you learn from that?
I think it's very important to have an intuition or a belief about or a hypothesis about how the future is going to evolve. The talk was off into that, but he had a very interesting take on how the future would evolve. And I think having that is necessary because it helps you build products in tune with how that thing could of making the future evolve in that certain way. I think that's really important. And even the best founders that I speak to, they seem to have a very strong hypothesis or strong belief about how future could potentially evolve, and the best ones try to make the future evolve in the way they believe it will.
So follow your intuition is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think having an intuition is very important, and following it is even more important.
That's honestly what we did at Just Paid is like there's I have a belief that like finance is going to change fundamentally. It's going to become very agentic and there's going to be a lot of newer ways to work with money and the transactions of money and like how you really think about it. And that's why we're building our company. So it's partly intuition on our end. You feel that way with healthcare, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think my understanding was that like we have some of the best research facilities in the world. We found out cures to some insane problems. Then why do we spend so many billions and billions of dollars doing this entire process? I think it is one of the most easily abstractable away processes currently, and it can save so much of money. So that was 5 or 10 years. It is going to change, and I wanted to be the person changing it.
Of course, you are definitely building on the patient side, on the healthcare side of things. Do you also think that now with evolving agents, now we just had OpenClaw, now NVIDIA is just launching its own claw, which is like a Nemo claw for enterprises. It's just gonna drop on in the next 5 days. So once they launch for enterprises, and I think even consumers will start using their own claws, right? And now I think the word has moved from agents to claws, is what I see. So, do you think consumers would have their own clause, which is just going to go ahead and talk to agents and then it's going to do it by themselves? Or do you think there's even going to be humans involved on the consumer side as well? Or is it just going to be agents talking to agents and then just them working together to find a resolution?
I don't know how it will work in healthcare because generally things are pretty slow to move in healthcare. Like even agents is a new concept for them, I would say. So I don't know how it will evolve in terms of care. But I do see Claw being very, very useful in stuff like getting an email, your Claw being able to answer a lot of those generic emails or a lot of the emails that needs a reply. Sometimes even being able to do some monotonous tasks for you, like order groceries and, a lot of other stuff, which is sort of repeatable and you don't need to get involved. And I think uh, I'm very curious to see how it evolves in healthcare, actually.
So now that you see so much chatter about these agents, right? And now I think this is like the first taste of people just getting to see, because it was so difficult, right? I mean, just 4 months ago, it was so difficult. You had to use Claude code and then build out your own Python script that monitors your emails. But now this completely does it. It has something called as a heartbeat, which runs every 30 seconds, and then just keeps looking at some information, right? So in the ops side of things at ages, like as a founder, do you think you'd be implementing something like this? Because personally, I think Daniel and I, we set up it on a virtual machine which is doing all the operation tasks and even some content side of things as well. So do you think you'd be using something like that in your GTM or operations or marketing?
Currently, we use it a lot in our GTM, basically targeting the correct people, sending them the outbound campaigns, understanding, tracking leads and understanding when to sort of approach a lead and when to find them. We also use it a lot in contract review. So in healthcare, there are very bespoke contracts regarding how you share the data and so on and so forth. And we use Claude a lot to understand that and to understand what the person on the other hand is saying. And it's saving us a lot of money and resources of that. So given that I am not involved with writing code on a daily basis, I also use it a lot to understand uh, where our code base is at currently, what are some of the updates that have been made, and so on and so forth.
Got it. But as a founder, you're definitely open to the idea of having virtual employees in your Slack, just having them DM you important stuff and notes so that you can just refer to them and then just get going your founder life. Is that something that you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gary also said it in a podcast, I think, about the term 20x company. You have far fewer people, and that's actually a flex, how much you can achieve. And that also changed our perspective because now when we go and speak to a company, we say that, we are able to build this entire software with a team of just 3 people. So we've mastered understanding how AI works. So we are more likely to provide you a more autonomous solution than any of these other companies who have hundreds of people on their payroll and so on and so forth.
I think that's definitely a pretty cool flex, right? Because it's like you're dog fooding your own ideology about agents. You're just using less people and more agents, and then you can just deliver that to your end consumer as well. So I think that's a pretty cool one. And definitely, Krishang, from personal note, I would say you're definitely good inspiration. I do look into your LinkedIn profile as well. That's pretty cool. I do read your notes and everything. So definitely good pointers that you put out. So yeah, looking forward to more of your thoughts and how you're gonna build out your startup. Yeah.
No, thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to let everyone know, check out Adis if you're in healthcare. If you have questions about medical billing, go to Krishang. He knows a lot about it, and his company can help you if you're a medical practice or whatnot. You're one of the most, I would say, inspirational founders I met in a long time. I just think you're going to do a lot of great things. Honestly, Krishang, I feel like you have a lot of tenacity to build something great. So I'm excited to see where you take your company, and I'm rooting for you, definitely. So
Well, thank you so much, Daniel. And I think you've been there for us a lot. And when we become successful, I think a big part of the credit goes to you as well.
awesome. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and I guess we'll end it here.
Thank you so much.